So we don't have a policy on when we would phase that out, and I do understand the reason that they put those in when you're in have industries that are competing overseas. You don't want to be just sort of effectively sort of offshoring carbon, but we need urgent climate action, and for that we need a really strong ETS. And we don't want that situation that we've had, over the past years of the government kind of messing with the carbon price. We actually need the carbon price to go up, frankly, if we're going to have it working the magic it's supposed to do of incentivising us to decarbonise as quickly as possible. So no, we shouldn't be subsidising carbon-intensive industries. And that's something we need to transition to quickly.
What about a carbon border fee mechanism? Why the ETS? Why not a carbon border fee mechanism?
To be honest, carbon tax, ETS, whatever drives down, whatever incentivises people to decarbonise, like I'm personally fairly neutral on it, but we need a strong carbon price to make that happen.
Thanks, Nicola.
Thank you. We don't have a policy on removing the carbon industrial allocations. However,
isn't that irresponsible?
In principle, I really agree with your point, which is that the purpose of the emissions trading scheme is to make polluters pay a price for the use of fossil fuels to incentivise them to reduce their use of fossil fuels. National sees the ETS as the key tool for getting us to net zero, and we have signed up to the Zero Carbon Act, so therefore we need the ETS to work. That's why we've said we want it to be sustainable. At the moment, the government keeps intervening, such that it even ended up in court, because it worries about the ETS price getting too high and that driving the cost of living. We don't think it's going to be sustainable if the government uses the revenue from it to write cheques for major polluters, which is the status quo. Big cheques for BlueScope Steel, for Heineken, for the Chelsea Sugar Factory, for Fonterra. We want to end that practice and instead make polluters pay a price for their emissions, take the revenue that's created by the ETS and recycle that back to New Zealanders in the form of tax reduction. Yes, I did work for Fonterra, but I finished speaking, haven't I? Yes, so, and I want to see us have the most sustainable farmers in the world. We do, but to get to the next phase, we need to invest in really good science so they can reduce the emissions from their animals.
Thanks, Nicola. Greg.
Yeah, one of the most frustrating things I've seen in my 6 years in Parliament, where politicians get up and make speeches like Nicola did and then oppose everything that is actually going to make a difference. The deal with Fonterra, the deal with New Zealand Steel, these are real things that are actually going to reduce our emissions. Yes, that's not quite your questions around using the ETS. The ETS, I'm confident that is actually going to find its right level. Yes, Nicola just pointed out that left the extreme cost of living that would be borne by the rest of New Zealand, there needs to be some mitigation, and that's where we're at the moment. But no one thing, what you've got to make sure is you've got a combined strategy to do it. And I tell you what, one of the things that I probably knew least about when I came into politics, but I've learned more and I've seen what we're doing, and I'm most proud of as being part of this Labour government is actually we're doing something about it, some real strategies.
Thanks, Greg. Mark.
We support the emissions trading scheme as long as it's not fiddled with by the government. However, the majority of our policy is to do with future-proofing mitigation against harmful climate impact. Now, as I mentioned before, we just don't know how long it's going to take. It could take 5, 10, 15 years to change the climate, and that's what the government's been focused on, changing climate. But the reality is, these storm events are upon us now. And if we're napping, so our energy, as far as our party, is actually putting in things like protecting the coastal areas, mitigating the harmful. Look at Auckland, what happened there, and Hawke's Bay. It was napping. For many years they've been told to protect themselves with levies and the like, so we should protect our populated areas, protect our heritage areas, the coastal and the river areas. That's our focus. Our focus is to mitigate.
Thank you. Right, next question. Danielle, thank you. Look at that. That wasn't intentional.
Take this bread, we're good.
We would love to hear what the Greens have got to say about an environmental question.
I made a joke about being worried about going last, and now it's happened twice. I think I'm cursed. So, going to be very honest with you, I am not a climate change nerd. I'm a nerd of many other things, but I'm not a climate change nerd. But that's okay because my party is full of incredibly smart climate change nerds. We've got a couple of pages on it in the policy, and I'm not going to insult you by pretending that I know what all of these words mean. What I do know is that we do need real climate action. We need to go further and faster than we have done so far, and we can see that while the Greens can make an impact when we have James Straw as the Minister of Climate Change, we would have more impact with Greens actually at the Cabinet table where the big decisions get made, and sometimes Labour has just ignored what we would like to do. So, Party Vote Green for real climate action seems like the most cliched thing I could possibly say, but it also happens to be true.